Good morning, and welcome to the Asodu Troublemakers. Today, on September 11th, we take a moment to remember the 2,977 lives lost 23 years ago today. I'm wearing this hat in honor of the courage of the 343 New York FD firefighters who made that ultimate sacrifice, along with their brothers and sisters and other first responders. This is a powerful reminder of the courage and selflessness that defined us that day. And we will never forget the pain and devastation of that tragic moment. It is important to remember that it didn't stop us. As a nation and as individuals, we moved forward, sometimes slowly, but always forward. That day tested us, but it also showed our resilience and our refusal to be stopped. And here we carry that same spirit. We come together from different places, different roles, all moving forward with a common purpose. We grow, we innovate, we face challenges head on, but we continue in our industry and in our lives. Let's honor those we lost by pushing forward, always stronger, together. And please join me in a moment of silence.
Good morning. Thanks for pausing with us for that moment. Never too far from that to have a moment. DG, welcome to the show. Thanks for bringing us in. We're talking about Ally, GM, and the EV slowdown myth.
Everywhere I go, the people really want to know who I is and who I be. They stop and stare when they see me. If I said it once, no need to repeat. Run up on me, watch you fall to your knees.
DG, you're like a wordsmith. You know what I mean? I just appreciate your ability to communicate clearly. And when you write it and read it, it's almost as good as when you ad lib.
Nothing's better than the ad lib. I know, but that needed a bit of that. I had to sit down and put that one together. I thought it was just, it really, it's like I said, it's us. We continued moving forward, so I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, no, I think that like I was thankful that our writing team also took a moment to just like, at the beginning of the email today, just recognize that. And, you can get removed from moments in history, and slowly start to like be disengaged with that moment. And whether it be the pandemic or 9/11 or World War, you kind of become disenfranchised from the idea that it impacts you or impacts the daily life of those around you. But, pausing to remember those things, I think, is important for us, for sure.
Yeah, and if anybody's at a dealership and you guys maybe, get some lunch for your local, firefighters or paramedics or police, It might just be a nice thing to do today, just to let them know, we don't forget and we appreciate first responders.
That's look, we could end the pod right there. Hey, go buy some lunch for some local first responders. A great grab. Hey, tomorrow we have an Asodu Edge webinar, What's Holding Your Title Department Back, that you are going to want to check out. If you go to asodu.com, scroll down just a wee bit, you can register for that webinar, and would love to have you there. Title department is often forgotten, but never forgotten by customers who can't get their titles, can't get their work done, can't get their registration.
Holding your titles back.
What is holding your title department back?
What is it with the titles?
Why is it like every dealership that I've ever worked with, everything, it is a tough thing to deal with. Everybody's like getting second temp tags, the whole 9 yards. It's brutal.
I do. I mean, listen, fix car washes and fix titles, and it's like you've got two of the biggest pain points right there.
Yeah, it's like car washes and titles are like our McDonald's ice cream machine. You know what I mean? I had to go there.
If that's not it right there, I don't know what is.
That was cold-blooded. That was cold-blooded. All right, let's get into it. Hey, first story today is Ally Financial is grappling with growing credit challenges as high inflation impacts borrowers, resulting in increased delinquencies. Their shares plummeted 17.62% on September 10th, signaling the pressure the lender faces. The delinquencies in their auto sector increased by 20 basis points in July and August compared to Ally's expectations. And net charge-offs, meaning unrecoverable debts, increased by 10 basis points during the same period. Have obviously been cutting back a lot. Ally has actually sold its lending business to Synchrony Financial to address its credit issue. Their CFO, Russell Hutchinson, specifically mentioned that the number of borrowers in the 61 plus day delinquency category has become a point of concern, with more underperformance expected in this bucket. His quote, our borrower is struggling with high inflation and now more recently, a weakening employment picture. So it's not just that initial lending, but what's happening to lenders and borrowers after the point of acquisition of a loan.
Right. And I think also it's, there's so much data out there, and it's like reading the tea leaves, right? So they're talking about their borrower, and where Allied might be, where their credit portfolio might be lying is with credit scores that, might be in those mid sixes, and that might track along with the nation's statistics. But when you see that there's auto delinquencies that have ticked up a bit, and people that are in the 60-day or 90-day plus mark, like that's not across the credit spectrum. So
Yep.
it is a little flashing light, and it is there certainly. And I'm not suggesting that this problem only belongs to Ally, but if it's made that much of an impact for Ally, then it's kind of a telling story about where they've been investing in their credit portfolio. And I don't think we're telling anything new to anybody that, that deals heavily in that credit band, and or anyone who deals specifically, and relies on Allies or captive finance. I think they've probably been seeing that, because the cost of living, the cost of insuring, and the cost of everything else have been on the rise now for almost 2 years. I do think that band of credit is really where you start to see the first crunch start, to crunch, to use economic terms. But I'm not saying that there's not other warning signs across the industry, but I do think in this case, I don't want to say it's isolated. I just think it's a bit more specific.
Yeah. And for those just wondering, like that band, Ally is a bit more of a full spectrum lender, not deep subprime, but a bit into subprime, mid prime, and near prime. So you aren't dealing with that 740 plus as much, right? They do that in some captive lending, but much more across the board, has a little like mid prime, near prime, and so you get that crunch because of, like you said, income levels, disposable income, typically slightly higher DTI ratios on some of that lending. So we'll see what continues to happen with this, because and I think we're actually going to be talking on the Wheelhouse this afternoon on the recording about like what the initial lending scenario is, because it's completely different too when you look at just what's available, prices of cars, LTV values going out, just to be able to cover some of the negative equity that we're experiencing from the past few years.
Right. And people are coming to the table with, now we're seeing an industry-wide average of negative equity that's coming into deals. And I think that's also one of the reasons, if you ask most desk managers why they're having problems, getting a lot of deals done, is just covering the negative. But yeah, yep. And we're gonna dump out as many tea leaves as we can, and try to make some type of order out of it, because you certainly have to take into account average, not only your average interest rates, which really haven't gone down, especially on used cars, and then just what it looks like from the amount of credit applications that we're submitting.
Yep, absolutely. I got no segue for the second story, but General Motors is intensifying its push toward an all-electric future, making it clear that salaried employees must align with its EV vision or move on. A series of organizational changes this year underscores GM dedication to selling only electric vehicles. Still, by the year 2035, they've downsized its their global headquarters to streamline operations. As we covered earlier this year, they revised how it evaluates employee performance with a stronger production and innovation focus. New bonus metrics even more closely aligned with the company's EV goals. Even remote work privileges have been reduced for some employees to promote more productivity and collaboration. GM spokesperson Kevin Kelly emphasized, "We're committed to making sure our teams have the right skills, are working effectively, and rewarded appropriately for delivering world-class vehicles to our customers." So it's not just an external push, it's an internal push toward making sure that everyone is aligned toward this EV vision and future. Interesting move.
How much of this is about production and how much of this is about could everyone please stop giving quotes to the press about how they don't think this is a good idea and it's not sustainable? I don't know if this was more of a production line thing or more of a line of, let's align ourselves in our communication. And by the way, like your guys, your GM employee plan now only works on EVs.
Right.
that would be a pretty drastic move, and we'd see how they would react there. I think it's not a bad thing.
Well,
to
I
try
think
and
we've
just-
actually seen that there's a better incentive on EVs already
100%.
for GM. I think Nissan moved to that as well.
Ford
You're
also.
seeing these Ford moved to that. You're seeing these manufacturers really like try and take an internal push, which I guess just from working in dealerships, like you're always trying to get people aligned with a vision on what you're selling, what you're interested in. You're trying to get, people in the vehicle, the manufacturer, right? At whatever dealership you're at, you're like, how can I get all my employees driving the vehicle? So it makes a lot of sense. It's just, the question on our minds is always, is this logical and practical? Or is it a little bit too much too early?
Right. Because how much more do we know about exactly what 2035 is going to look like from GM's perspective or anybody else's? Right. So that's still the date that's just out there, but how we get there.
And everyone thought that 2024 was going to look a lot different than it was. And everyone's kind of backpedaled on their claims and their predictions for this year and their productivity levels over the next 3. So how can you predict 10 and start to kind of move an internal narrative and focus on something like that that's so unpredictable?
And you notice that it all stops just short of saying we are an EV brand. Right. Like it's be aligned with our strategy. It's not saying
because those margins come, baby. Those margins come.
Right. And it's a little Marshawn Lynch here, right? Like we're here just so we don't get fined. These EVs are here so we don't get fined.
Speaking of EVs, so we don't get fined, I guess.
Segue.
That was a segue.
This is a fun article. We're going to point this out that it's a very opinionated electric article, which if you've ever read up on electric, a lot of opinions in there. But despite misleading headlines claiming otherwise, this writer says the EVs sales continue to rise globally, though growth percentages have naturally slowed as the market expands. Typically, media is reporting, obviously, over this first year, a slump in EVs. Despite declines from automakers like GM, VW, and Tesla, overall EV sales in the US in Q1, so that's like the full data that we have, still increased by 7%, reflecting continued growth in the market. Here's a fun quote from the electric article. Then I want to pull up a couple graphics, but this journalist said, each journalist who has spent the last year perpetuating the myth of an EV sales slowdown should have read any one of our articles or Googled a single number showing year-over-year EV sales in any region or for most countries and most brands and found that they are still going up. The information is out there and easy to find. So stop lying. I feel like someone I don't know, has stock in Tesla or something. We'll see what that is. I do want to point out this one chart or two charts.
Look at our objective journalism here from a site called Electric, and that's the only place you should be getting information from.
So there's two charts that were there. One is this chart showing just the difference in Q1 growth or decline from different manufacturers, and you see, some of the legacy manufacturers starting to dip in and get their toes wet. GM, obviously, with their exclusion of the Bolt this year, saw a decline, and then Tesla, as everybody knows, saw a Q1 decline, but they're on the rebound in Q2. So almost a balance in the market at a 7% increase. But then the one that we've been talking a lot about, and if you look at the difference between how plug-in hybrids, pure EVs, and hybrids, right, gas-powered hybrids, and you see this initial leading indicator, and then in the EV world for the past 5 years, but hybrids quickly over the last 3 quarters starting to take a significant advantage, primarily due to a company called Toyota, but also other companies more heavily investing in hybrids. So still a growth in the market outside of non-hybrid or electric vehicles, but hybrids definitely still winning. Yeah,
they're less how many times we're gonna have to say this, right? And Toyota will be the first one to let everybody know that also, right? I mean, they're able to produce hybrids that are less than $2,000 less expensive than their ICE counterpart. If it had to be purely, then if it had to go to be purely electric, right? So $2,000 less than making an ICE completely electric, and you can still have a hybrid. So that's been proven to just be a winning strategy. I think also if you look at the chart with manufacturers, the other OEMs, and again, I've always been 100% 100% on board with the idea that Tesla has a core Tesla market share that is part of the electric and alternate energy vehicle market share, but that Tesla market share is uniquely theirs. There's every other OEM also in the electric space and what their market share looks like. And right, so this chart would be fair if we also threw on their average incentive spend and average discount and average transaction price. Like, this chart would make a lot more sense to everybody sitting in dealerships if we looked at how much dealers are being pressured to discount these vehicles, what the average OEM incentive spend is on these vehicles. And some of these manufacturers on the chart, you're talking about average discounts nearing 20% on a new car. So are they transacting? Yeah, but maybe we have a broader definition of what selling actually is. And also, let's not forget that manufacturers put a lot of pressure. Manufacturers that have both fully electric as well as ICE vehicles put a lot of pressure on the dealerships to make sure that they are moving the electric vehicles. And oftentimes the most common way to do that is with the threat, implied or otherwise, of holding back some of your ICE allocation until you can sell your EVs. So they are inextricably tied in a way that, like, the non-EV segment never asked for, but the EV segment relies on the ICE segment in order to continue to be able to sell and to transact.
Yeah. So is the EV segment still overinflated due to discounts, not even just tax incentives? Still yet to be determined, because the market is still reacting primarily to discounts in a lot of places, even though there is a core market share, like you said, that is Tesla or is early adopter EV. Hey, look, it's just one person's opinion, and we got opinions too over here. But you got things to go do today, people to serve, people to love. Hey, go buy your first responders a nice lunch, a nice meal, celebrate them, thank them for all they do. This is America.
Absolutely.
Let's go.
Thanks, guys.